Good morning, news viewers. My name is Rachel Sa, and today we will be re-examining the negative stigma around autism in South Korea and how different media representations are changing the stigma. We will first focus on how Korean autistic individuals face systemic stigmatization in school and what role its systems such as education and policy play in this stigma. Then we will shift to examining how media representation is gradually changing the stigma, particularly through Korean dramas and films, while considering the global impact of South Korean media. Autism spectrum disorder, ASD for short, is a neurodevelopmental disorder which is characterized by persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts. It is also characterized by restricted, repeated patterns of behavior, interests, or activities according to the American Psychiatric Association. Before diving into how autism is viewed in South Korea, it is important to understand the country and its cultural context. Korea is a country that is ethnically, culturally, and racially homogeneous, unlike the United States. Cultural differences affect how social behaviors are viewed or valued. Stigmas about individuals with ASD have historically existed in Korean culture, and those stigmas have been affecting the diagnosis and social environment of individuals with ASD. These social environment effects include, but are not limited to, the meanings that people give to ASD, whether or not parents of children with autism seek help, what types of help or support are available, how much stigma exists in a community for people with ASD, and interactions between caregivers of individuals with ASD and healthcare systems. So-Yoon Kim and other researchers have found in 2023 that Koreans reported heightened explicit stigma and more negative implicit biases toward autism compared to Americans. Similarly, Koreans reported significantly less frequent contact with autistic individuals compared to Americans. These findings highlight the need for efforts to increase autism knowledge and foster positive contact with autistic individuals. The researchers discussed that Koreans' perceptions of societal norms about how minority people should behave in their country may have been the primary contributing factor to their explicit stigma toward autism. So with all of this in mind, what are some other factors as to why South Korea has such a negative stigma around autism, and what are both the past and existing policies and education for individuals with autism in Korea? The education system in the States is guided by legislation such as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 2004 to provide individuals with disabilities free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment, along with the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 to prevent individuals with disabilities from being discriminated against. Similarly, the Special Education Promotion Act was made into law in Korea in 1977 by the Korea Ministry of Government Legislation, but was discontinued as legislation entitled Special Education Laws for Persons with Disabilities and Others was made in 2007 as the first special education law, and this law was created to provide free public education. In 2012, free public education was expanded to kindergartens and high schools. In 2009, the Koreans with Disabilities Act, which resembles the Americans' Disabilities Act, also known as ADA, was enacted. However, some researchers found that more than 50% of people with disabilities answered in a survey that they did not know about this law, and about half of people in Korea without disabilities answered that they were not aware of this law. The results of the survey indicate that the law, enacted to protect people with disabilities, needs to be promoted more to the public to make it more practical and useful. Despite these laws, education for children with ASD remains an area of concern in Korea. Even though there are special schools and special classes in some mainstream schools, they are mostly not specialized for individuals with ASD or developmental disabilities. In many cases, individuals with autism share the same special classroom with individuals with other disabilities, such as individuals with visual or hearing impairment, and they do not receive specialized education or treatment for their disability. Moreover, special schools usually do not accept moderately affected or children with ASD who have age-appropriate cognitive and language abilities. Education in special schools is usually limited to children more severely affected by autism. In Korea, it is mandatory that all children are educated in mainstream schools unless they have severe disabilities, since a law for integrated education was passed in 1994. Children with ASD who are moderately affected or who have age-appropriate cognitive and language abilities usually get their education in mainstream schools, and most of those schools do not have or provide special education services. Although the purpose of integrated education between students with and without disabilities was to protect the educational rights of students, the lack of manpower and measures necessary for embracing various types of disability have proven to be obstacles to ideal implementation. Recently, the Korean education system has been adopting more inclusive education policies and practices. Special education laws for persons with disabilities and others issued in 2007 provide a more specific way of supporting inclusive education, with the general education classroom as a priority for students with disabilities when assigning their placement in school. The number of students with a disability who receive education in general education settings has increased each year since then. In inclusive education, parents with disabilities and teachers have historically needed to work cooperatively to make education successful for children with ASD. However, the cooperative system between parents with children with disabilities and teachers may still be deficient, and some mothers of children with autism reported in research that inclusive education tends to have fewer resources and systematic support than special schools. Another issue with students with ASD receiving education in general education settings is bullying. School bullying is common in Korean schools, even today. Though there are many factors that play into this, the primary factor is the academic stress and pressure that students receive from their parents and teachers on a daily basis, all throughout high school. The Korean education system is different from the US school system in that students' college admissions depend on a single exam known as the CSAT or 수능. Most parents send their children to shadow education or hagwons, leading the students to study until midnight and receive less than 6 hours of sleep a night, all to get into an elite university. Because of these intense schedules and competition among students, the easiest way to relieve stress is through bullying other students, and the target becomes vulnerable populations like autistic students. Sun-jo Hwang and others in 2018 found that students with ASD are more likely to be involved in bullying, either as victims or perpetrators, and have more frequent experiences with bullying compared to students without ASD in Korea. Having difficulties with social skills and showing unusual behaviors make them stand out among peers and lead them to be victims of bullying. Having a close relationship is one of the protective factors against being a victim of bullying, but students with autism have difficulties with developing close relationships with their peers, possibly contributing to a higher number of victims of bullying among students with ASD. Additionally, Win Ho-yoon and other researchers in 2024 recruited and interviewed participants with ASD to hear more about their schooling experiences in Korea. Some define school to be quote-unquote a horrific hell. All the participants expressed that they struggled to survive by enduring physical and verbal abuse like bullying, ignoring, ridiculing, and teasing, and they were perceived as outsiders who could not be included in mainstream social groups. Many were called labels like mentally ill, sick, and disabled. The study participants shared that these experiences initially started as early as elementary school and continued throughout middle and high school. Even aside from the bullying they received from other students, what contributed to their trauma was the lack of support they received from their respective schools. Schools were busy trying to please the mainstream social groups by giving lenient punishments to the bullying perpetrators while viewing victims as pitiful people with disabilities. Many even felt that the teachers and school administration were punishing the bullies and dealing with these types of situations just for the show and the school's reputation. They felt that there were no schools in the country that advocated for the victims and that only problematic schools existed. Overall, these participants were forced to survive on the edges of the school system and violence because of the lack of support they received from the school. These interviews and experiences highlight the deeply negative perception of ASD in Korea and underscore the urgent need for change. However, it is not too late to lose hope. I argue that Korean media involving K-dramas and movies is gradually but effectively challenging and shifting the stigma. The specific film I want to bring to your attention is Extraordinary Attorney Woo, that aired in 2022. The main character of this film is named Woo Young-woo, who is an autistic female rookie attorney hired by a major law firm in Seoul. She has the distinction of being the first autistic attorney in Korea. She is portrayed differently from her neurotypical colleagues as her mannerisms are perceived as odd and awkward yet blunt, which can steer away from social norms. However, Attorney Woo is able to deal with each legal case through her high intelligence and photographic memory, and quickly becomes an increasingly competent attorney, and thus leading her to gain recognition from other legal professionals and clients. The producer of this K-drama illustrates a variety of difficulties that Woo experiences, but generally speaking, what people with ASD experience and have experienced. The viewers are given a glimpse into the perspective of a person with autism, helping them better understand how individuals with ASD function and react in certain situations. For instance, this particular scene portrays an example of how a person with ASD may struggle with loud noises due to sensory overload. Throughout the entire show, Woo has a special interest in whales and spends lots of time thinking about it. There are also some scenes where she prefers her items and food to be arranged in a specific way. These small details highlight common characteristics of autism, showcasing that these behaviors are simply a part of who they are, and that there is nothing quote-unquote weird about them. Additionally, there is an episode that portrays bullying and how Woo was targeted at school, which ties back to the earlier point that students with ASD are more likely to be victims of bullying. However, instead of the scene ending there, the producer includes a moment where Woo finds support from a friend during these challenging times. This addition highlights the loneliness that individuals with autism can experience, while also emphasizing the crucial role of community and the importance of having supportive relationships. Continuing on with the idea of supportive relationships, the last point I want to bring about this film is that there is an aspect of romance involved, which truly adds to Youngwoo's supportive community. A new character named Lee Jun-ho comes into the picture, who is one of the few kind, patient, and loving people in Attorney Woo's corner from the start. The chemistry between these two highlights how it is not impossible for people on the spectrum to fall in love, and that the feeling of being loved and learning how to love can aid in personal growth and acceptance. This romantic subplot helps to break down stereotypes about people on the autism spectrum, reinforcing that they too deserve the opportunity to experience love and connection in a way that is both healthy and fulfilling. However, more than a legal drama or a romance, this is a story of Youngwoo's journey as an autistic individual having to navigate a world that is often not built for her. What I truly appreciated about the show was that this series has not tried to sugarcoat the social challenges faced by people on the autism spectrum, but instead depicted them in a delicate and respectful manner. Each episode covers a new story with different legal aspects and ethical considerations, keeping viewers gripped and entertained. The viewers were able to witness a multifaceted portrayal of autism that goes beyond stereotypes, showcasing the complexity of an individual on the spectrum. By centering Woo's experiences and challenges, the show encourages a more empathetic and nuanced understanding of autism, helping to break down misconceptions and promote acceptance. Through her character, viewers can see that people on the spectrum are not defined solely by their neurodiversity, but are fully realized individuals with unique strengths, vulnerabilities, and aspirations. The individual who acted as Youngwoo, named Park Eun-bin, won the prestigious grand prize in TV at the Baeksang Arts Awards, which is a ceremony that awards South Korean actors for excellence in film, television, and theater. This grand prize is one of the most respected honors in South Korean entertainment. Park Eun-bin's win highlights the show's impact on the entertainment industry as it drew attention to diverse and meaningful narratives, especially those centered on neurodiversity. Her recognition at the Baeksang Arts Awards was not just an acknowledgement of her talent, but also a reflection of how extraordinary Attorney Woo has contributed to a broader cultural conversation about autism and representation in media, ultimately adding to a gradual shift of the negative stigma around autism. This show has garnered significant attention both nationally and internationally, raising awareness and helping shift public perceptions of autism in a more positive direction. The international success highlights the global need for more inclusive narratives in media. The show has not only raised awareness about autism, but also inspired people from different cultures to reflect on how they view and treat those who are neurodiverse. In a broader sense, the series has contributed to a cultural shift, helping to create a more compassionate and open-minded society. Extraordinary Attorney Woo is not the first film that involves a neurodivergent character. There was a movie released in 2013 titled Miracle in Cell Number 7, which is about a developmentally disabled man, strongly implied to be autistic, wrongly imprisoned for murder, who builds friendships with the hardened criminals in his cell, who in return help him see his daughter again by smuggling her into the prison. The movie is based on a real-life story of a man who was tortured and pleaded guilty under duress to the rape and murder of a 9-year-old girl. Miracle in Cell Number 7 became a massive hit in South Korea, drawing large audiences with its emotional story and themes of love, innocence, and friendship. It was praised for its portrayal of the injustice faced by the developmentally disabled, as well as the transformative power of human connection. Like Extraordinary Attorney Woo, this film contributes to the shifting public perceptions about individuals with disabilities, particularly those on the autism spectrum, by presenting them as fully realized human beings capable of love, suffering, and resilience. While media and entertainment should not be the sole source of information about people with disabilities, they undeniably play a significant role in shaping public perceptions and fostering empathy. When represented authentically, characters with disabilities can challenge stereotypes and offer a more nuanced understanding of the lived experiences of individuals on the autism spectrum or with other disabilities. The global reach of Korean media, especially with the international success of shows like Extraordinary Attorney Woo and movies like Miracle in Cell No. 7, presents a valuable opportunity to raise awareness and promote positive change. As Korean media continues to gain popularity worldwide, it has the potential to serve as a bridge for cultural exchange, allowing audiences from different countries to reflect on how society views and treats individuals with autism and other disabilities. These portrayals can spark important conversations about inclusivity, empathy, and the need for systemic change, both within South Korea and globally. By presenting characters who are not defined solely by their disabilities, but as complex, multidimensional individuals, media can help shift the conversation from one of pity to one of respect, acceptance, and recognition of the value that neurodiverse individuals bring to society. Furthermore, the global success of Korean media provides an opportunity to challenge the stigma surrounding autism on a much larger scale. The characters and stories seen on screen can inspire viewers to reconsider their own biases and attitudes, paving the way for a more inclusive world where individuals on the autism spectrum are seen, heard, and valued for who they are. Through this process, media can be a catalyst for positive social change, helping to create a more compassionate and understanding society that embraces diversity in all its forms. And so, as Korean media continues to captivate audiences worldwide, it serves as a powerful tool in not only entertaining, but also educating and challenging long-held perceptions. Through heartfelt portrayals of individuals with disabilities, like those seen in Korean media, these stories are helping to break down stigma and promote a more inclusive world. Thank you. 새로운 시작은 늘 설레게 하지 모든 걸 이겨낼 것처럼 시간을 뒤쫓는 시계바늘처럼 앞질러 가고 싶어